Well, hey there, team. This is podcast number 817. For me, it's the 12th of December 2019, and you are listening to episode 36 of the Muay Thai podcast. Well, hey there, team, and welcome along to this episode of the Muay Thai podcast, podcasting since 2007 and heard by more than 1 million people in over 160 countries. I am the old guy, and today I chat with you from the treadmill as we bring you part 3 of Muay Thai for Beginners. Check out all things Muay Thai podcast and all things Old Guy over there at www.oldguy-muaythai.com. Well, that's enough of the old guy banging away here at the desk. Let's down the stairs into the shed, jump on the treadmill, and hear from the old guy. Well, good afternoon, team, and welcome out here to the shed once again as we get some miles in here on the Muay Thai podcast. And pretty hot in the shed here this afternoon. It's 36 degrees Celsius outside and a beautiful, comfortable 44 degrees Celsius in here under the tin. So it's a hot, hot day. But today we're going to be covering part 3 of Muay Thai for Beginners. And you may recall back in part 2, the old guy started to work his way through the list of stuff that Bob from Bob's Muay Thai gym wanted him to bring to his first training session. So in the last one we talked about mainly clothing, and today we're going to get stuck into the next part of Bob's list, and that's going to start to cover some of the gear that the old guy is going to need for training at Bob's Muay Thai gym. Now, whether we'll get through the whole lot today, it will be a couple of parts today, but whether we get through the whole lot or not will remain to be seen. But we'll jump into it, and the first thing on the list for the old guy was for gear that he needed to train with was hand wraps. So the typical roll-on quick hand wraps are long pieces of elasticized cotton material, usually about 50 millimeters or a couple of inches in width, and usually about 4.5 meters or about 180 odd inches in length. Now, they're meant to wrap your hands, your knuckles and your wrists to secure the integrity of the structure of the hand and to prevent injury. Now, these are not to be confused with the gauze and tape type of hand wrapping that you will see on pro fighters, usually just before they put the gloves on and hop into the ring. Now, that gauze and tape type of hand wrapping, whilst serving a similar purpose, it's a much more complicated and a much more secure style of wrapping your hands than what the typical quick roll-on hand wraps that we know will give you. So these hand wraps, or quick wraps, whatever you want to call them, usually have a loop on one end to secure around the thumb to start the wrap, and then have a Velcro closure on the finish end to secure the wrap. Honestly, one of these roll-on wraps is the minimum protection that the old guy should have on before putting on a boxing or a Muay Thai glove. It's just my 2 cents worth, but I really have no time for people who want to train in combat sports, but they won't take the time to learn how to wrap their hands. Yes, it can be a little bit tedious to learn and to do, but really, what price to protect your hands? And whilst I'm having a bit of a rant, as for the numerous slip-on quick wraps that are on the market today, and again, it's only my 2 cents worth, but I think they are next to useless in providing the protection that a proper hand wrap will provide. And that goes for the habit of trainers that just give people those white cotton gloves to wear inside their boxing gloves or Muay Thai gloves. And I think that's enough said about that. Don't succumb to white cotton gloves or quick wraps. Get yourself some proper Velcro hand wraps. Learn how to wrap your hands, and you'll do so much better for yourself. Now, a good pair of boxing or Muay Thai hand wraps will ensure that your knuckles and your wrists are protected when you punch, and they will go a long way to preventing you from spraining your wrist, bruising your knuckles, or doing any other serious sort of damage to your hand. And probably protecting your hands is key, really is. Especially if you're training regularly, the impact of punch after punch, day after day, week in and week out can really take a toll on your hands. And whilst you might take your hands for granted when, your hands are healthy, a small injury to the hand is all it takes to set you back months and months in your training. That's why it's so important that you know how to wrap your hands properly, get in the habit and do it. A good pair of hand wraps is, beside your boxing gloves, probably the most important piece of Muay Thai gear. And, make sure that you buy the right hand wraps. A bad pair of hand wraps will waste your time. They offer inferior protection, chafe your knuckles. As for me, I use the Sting brand. That's an Australian brand here down under. And also use the Fairtex brand wraps. I find both of them to be the right width and length, the right amount of stretch in the material, and the material itself sort of, plush, if I can use that word, and very, very comfortable. When your hands are wrapped properly, they should feel snug with no loose wrapping. If you wrap your hands properly and then you hit a heavy bag, you should not feel your wrist buckling under that pressure. You should not feel your knuckles being moved around or being chafed. Remember, the key thing is snug, but not overly tight. In the show notes for this show, over there at Old Guy Muay Thai, I've put a whole bunch of links to wrapping videos or videos on how to wrap your hands. There's 3 different ones there. Go and check them out. Pardon me. And follow along and learn how to do it. Let's quickly look at some of the common mistakes that people make when wrapping their hands. And the first one is wrapping either too tight or too loose. It's going to take you a little bit of time and practice to get the feeling for how tight is too tight or how loose is too loose. Get it too tight, man, you're going to start to feel pain and then a numbness in your hands. Get it too loose, every time you move your hand or pull your glove off, your wrap's going to come with it. A really well done wrap will feel comfortable once it's on, and when you make a fist, it should tighten down and feel absolutely solid on your hand, especially across your knuckles, and that's always a pretty good test. Once you've done your wrap, make a fist and the whole thing should be solid around your hand. The next thing people get mucked up is rolling the wraps upside down or inside out. Wraps only go on one way, and if you start the wrong way, then when you get to the end, the Velcro is going to be on the wrong side. Now, it's not a huge problem because you simply go back 1 or 2 rolls, put a bit of a twist in the wrap, and boom, the Velcro is the right way up. But it's much, much better to do it the right way round from the start. Now, most brand name wraps will have a marking on them saying this way down or this way up or something to that effect. But if they don't, then another little clue is that generally the unsewn edge will be the part that lays face down across the back of your thumb. If you're unsure, once you've got them and you know they're the right way around, just mark them with a pen so you know which side you should be starting with, facing up or facing down. The next thing people make a mistake of not doing is not making a fist several times during the wrapping. Now, when I wrap my hands, I wrap in 3 distinct stages, and at the end of each stage I make a fist to determine how the wrap is progressing and to check for the correct tightness. And in fact, during the last stage I do that several times, and it goes a long way to helping the wrap form around your joints as you go before you start putting additional layers of wrap over the top of it. So a really key thing that I do is I make that fist many times during the wrap. Next mistake people make is failing to pay equal attention to both the knuckles and the wrist. Now, I wrap my hands very differently depending on what I'm going to be doing that session. I wrap in a different manner for when I'm going to be hitting the heavy bag as opposed to when I'm going to be holding pads for a client or something for a session. Having said that, I always pay attention to both my knuckles and my wrist, no matter what the wrap style I use. Too many people put a lot of effort into the knuckles and then forget to protect their wrist, or vice versa. You've got to make sure that the wrap is providing integrity to your knuckles and support around that wrist. The next mistake people make is they buy cheap, poor quality wraps. Now, good quality wraps, and you should have at least 2 to 3 as a minimum, is a great investment in your sport and your training. Poor quality wraps are going to provide poor support, little support, and they will chafe the absolute life out of your knuckles and your hands. Cheap wraps are usually too narrow, and generally they're way too short to properly, wrap and protect your hands. Honestly, please buy, good quality wraps from a reputable brand. Make sure they're a good 50 mil or 2 inches in width and at least 4.5 meters or 180 inches in length. Good quality material, and you can see, you'll know once you start to use hand wraps, you'll know a good material. And make sure they've got good quality Velcro that is completely stitched around the perimeter of the Velcro. Pardon me, sniffling and coughing, still got this blinking flu thing going on. The last big mistake people make is not caring for their wraps. If you don't care for your wraps, man, they're going to end up smelling like poop, and they'll be very difficult to put on. They'll also become a breeding ground for bacteria, which will find its way into your gloves and into any abrasions on your hands. The bacteria will absolutely stink up your kit bag. And I cringe every time I see somebody finish training, they just peel their wraps off, at the end of that training session, just throw them in a kit bag. And that's where they lay until the next time they train, and then I stand there and watch them struggle with this crimpled and crumpled and twisted mess when they try to use it. The next time, that just drives me absolutely nuts. One of the things I do at the end of the session, before I start to cool down and stretch, I take the wraps off, I hang them over a beam in the gym or a top rope, or I hang them up somewhere where they can hang down and start to dry and air and let the creases fall out of them. And then when I'm ready to leave training, I quickly roll them up so they're nice and flat in one roll. I put them in a brown paper bag that I carry, and that keeps them separate from the other training gear until I can get home and put them out to air. And this is why you should have as many pairs of wraps in rotation as you can, so that you can, when you finish training, like I say, roll them up so they're nice and flat, take them home, hang them up in the shed or out in the sun and the fresh air to dry and sanitize, and use your next dry pair for your next training session. My wraps are either rolled up or they're hanging out somewhere so that they hang flat and straight, or they're rolled flat and straight. You will not believe just how much easier that makes them to put on. And at any one given time, I'll have 2 or 3 pairs of wraps hanging up either outside, like I say, in the sun, or in here in the shed to dry and to sanitize. Now every few weeks I'll put all my wraps in a tub of nappy sanitizer or disinfectant to clean them up, and then I put them back in the sun to dry. So please get at least 2 to 3 sets of wraps. Use them properly, care for them properly, and man, you will enjoy your training just so much more. Well, we might take a real quick break there, a little bit of something, music or motivation or something, and we'll come back on the other side and we'll start to talk about the next thing on Bob's list, and that is groin guards. Don't go away, we'll be right back.
By a beating heart, I can tell where the journey will end, but I know where it starts. It tells me that I'm too young to understand, I'm caught up in a dream. Well, life will pass me by if I don't open up my eyes. That's fine by me. Wake me up when it's all chance to travel the world, but I don't have any plans. I wish that I could stay forever this young, not afraid to close my eyes. Life's a game made for everyone, and love is the prize. So wake me up when I hear some more, when I'm wiser and I'm older. All this time I'm finding myself and I didn't know I was wrong. So wake me up when it's all over, when I'm wiser and I'm older. All this time I'm finding myself and I didn't know I was lost.
Alrighty, and we are back. Alright, on to the next part of the list. And the next item on the list that the old guy got from Bob's Muay Thai gym was a groin guard. Now, if you've ever been hit or kicked or had any sort of impact to your groin area, then you will know firsthand why Bob has asked you to get a groin guard. Now, the Muay Thai groin guard is very different to the big boxing type guards that you may have seen boxers wearing in fights. A typical boxing groin guard also offers a lot of protection for the lower belly, the hips, the kidney areas, and they're a very thick and wide, bulky piece of apparatus. Now, of course, that level of protection is desirable, but it doesn't help you in Muay Thai when you're trying to throw kicks and knees and need so much more mobility in that hip area. A traditional Thai groin guard is pretty much just a steel cup. It really is. It's got 3 bits of rope on it to secure around your waist and your legs. But I tell you what, that's still a pretty effective groin guard to this day. And these days there are plenty of cup-style groin guards to choose from with a variety of shock-absorbing qualities to choose from. Some of them just slip inside your underwear. Others have elasticized waists and leg straps. As for me, I'm currently using the Shock Doctor groin guard. Provides a nice solid hard plastic central shell with good protection both low and high, if that makes sense. And it has a very comfortable shock soft gel around the outside of it, and it houses my bits pretty well. And just like Muay Thai shorts or wraps, you might need to go through a few before you find the one that works for you. I will say though, please invest the money and go for a reputable and quality guard, and honestly stay away from those cheap karate style soft guards. Now that's not a reflection on karate, because you're well aware of my long history in the karate game, but that's more of a description of the type of guards that I often see Karate Car using. You may ask, just in closing, why do I need a groin guard? Well, when you first start training, you may be just hitting the bag or doing some Thai pads, hitting some Thai pads that someone's holding for you. And that's fine, you don't really need a groin guard then, but sooner or later you're going to start doing what we call partner drills, and we're going to talk a lot more about that in future episodes of Muay Thai for beginners. But it's during those drills when you're working with a partner that you really do want to be protected from errant kicks or knees to your nether region. So get a groin guard, take it along to training with you, and you'll know exactly when and where to slip that thing inside your shorts and be protected. Now the next thing on the old guy's list, and probably the last one that we'll cover today, is ankle supports. Now, ankle supports or anklets are an elasticized cotton brace that you wear over your ankle. Looks kind of like a sock with the toes and the heel missing. Now these are a little bit contentious item of training gear in the Muay Thai sport. Some people swear by the use of them, and then the other guy will say they do next to nothing. I'm just going to relate to you how I use them and what they do for me. You know, as the name suggests, they are there to provide support for your ankle. Now, considering the amount of work that your feet and ankles do during a Muay Thai training session, then it's reasonable to expect that they are going to be a required piece of gear. And in my experience, they do. They provide me with ankle support both during training and fighting. They also provide a small amount of protection to the front of my ankle and foot during kicks on the bags or pads. I have trained with them and I've trained without them, and honestly they work for me. Pardon me. Now, whether that's in my head or not, I don't really care. I like them and I use them, and they like I say, they work for me. Now, like most other pieces of Muay Thai equipment, they have to be the right ones for you. Get ones that are too loose or big and they'll do nothing. They slip all over the place, they drive you nuts, they fall off. Too small or too tight. Next thing you know, you're inhibiting circulation throughout the ankle. You can end up with numb toes, pain in your feet. Some are longer in the upper ankle section, which I like that one a lot. And some are longer in the foot section. And just like wraps, there's plenty of cheapo anklets on the market. And a lot of those cheap ones, they just don't do the job they're meant to do. As for me, I like the Top King and Morgan brand anklets. Both of those give me a very secure feeling around the ankle. Sizing is really, really good. And they provide a certain level of protection to the top of my foot when kicking. Now, we're going to cover kicking in a future episode, and I can hear a lot of you saying already that we should be kicking with our shin. But honestly, the amount of times I'm kicking pads and bags, and generally I hit with the shin, but there are plenty of times when you miss kick, or the guy holding the pads shifts slightly, and your foot connects and your ankle connects. And in these cases, having that little bit of protection on the ankle, or having the ankle secure, really does help in that case. So there you go, guys. Hand wraps, groin guards, ankle supports or anklets. That's a good start to the old guy's collection of training gear before he heads off to Bob's Muay Thai gym for his first Muay Thai lesson. In the next episode, I think we'll wrap that list up and talk about skipping ropes and Muay Thai gloves. And very, very exciting to be going through this list of gear. I hope it's helping you. I hope it's getting you ready for your very first Muay Thai class. Start collecting the gear. Start going and looking at hand wraps. Start looking at groin guards. Start looking at anklets. Get some, try them, and we'll go from there. But for now, we might wrap this up here on the treadmill, and I'll see you back at the desk, and we'll tidy it all up. Don't go away.
Alrighty team, that'll just about wrap us up for this edition of the Muay Thai podcast, and a huge big thank you to each and every one of you for continuing to pop on over, download the shows, and listen in as we have a bit of fun here on the Muay Thai podcast. Well, that's about enough of the old guy banging away here at the desk for today. Until I see you on the very next episode of the Muay Thai podcast, or maybe see you out there in the rings or the gym somewhere, this is the old guy saying bye-bye for now.